Hi everyone, welcome to another webisode of The Good Doctor on eZeLiving.com. Today's topic of conversation is genetically modified foods and how bad they really are for us, for our body, for our health. And you know what? I've asked experts from the health community in terms of defining what genetically modified foods are. And they've all agreed that GMOs are pretty much the distortion of DNA within food groups. Now, companies like Monsanto, the agricultural companies, genetically modify food in order for them to have a defense mechanism against the environment or against insects or depletion or things that can basically destroy crop. So they become more resistant towards the elements that our environment, our natural habitat provides us. What does that do, and what is the impact of that slight modification, as good and well-intended as it is, on our body, our nutrition, our wellness, our health? And that's the topic of this conversation and this webisode that we're going to have with experts around the world. The first person that's going to offer his insight on this subject is Dr. Suzuki. Let's listen in on what he has to say.
My name is David Suzuki. I am, by training and profession, a geneticist. And for 25 years, I had an active career in science, once having the largest genetics lab in Canada. I'm narrating this film because I'm concerned about the unseemly haste with which my colleagues and my peer group seem to be ready to rush in and begin to apply ideas in this revolutionary area. To apply ideas that I think are far too early to expose people either in our drugs, in our food, or out in open fields. In discussions I've had with my fellow geneticists, they often say, listen, Suzuki, we're just talking about DNA. DNA is DNA. What difference does it make what organism it comes from? We pull it out of this organism, put it into another, it's just DNA. They forget a fundamental fact. We study the genetics of organisms by breeding a male and a female of one species, looking at their offspring and breeding them through what is called vertical inheritance within a species. When you take a gene from one species and transfer that DNA into a totally unrelated species, that's a completely different kind of experiment. This is now called horizontal inheritance. We've never done that before, and it is absolutely bad science to say that we can look at vertical inheritance and use the same ideas to explain what goes on in horizontal experiments. It's just lousy science. Genes don't function alone. They function within the context of the entire genome. Nature acts on the entire genome because after fertilization, there are whole sets of genes turned on and off in the proper sequence so that you get the development of a complete organism. So that whole orchestration is an integrated genome that acts as a complete entity. To take a gene out of a fish and stick it into a plant means the fish gene suddenly wakes up and goes, where the hell am I? Who are all these other genes around me? Because you've altered the context within which that gene is found. It would be like taking Bono out of U2 and putting him into the New York Philharmonic Orchestra and say, okay, folks, play music. Well, you get noise of some sort, but nobody can anticipate what the sum total of that activity will be. It's just a mistake to think that genes act as if their traits are expressed regardless of where they exist.
Now, let's weigh in on the conversation of another medical doctor who talks about genetically modified foods and its negative impact, particularly corn.
It is possible to avoid GMOs, and it's something that every family should do. I mean, they should go through their refrigerator, they should go through their cupboard, and the number one thing they should look for is anything corn. If it's organic, then it's GMO-free. But if it's not certified organic, then they're going to need to go through and look at any high fructose corn syrup, anything made from corn, any corn meal, corn chips that most people have. The main thing is you want to avoid anything made of corn. But let me just take that corn situation one step further. You have to remember that a lot of the cattle and pig and chicken are fed GMO corn. So when you feed an animal GMO corn in their feed, those genetically modified organisms get into the cow, into the pig, into the chicken, and then you eat that. So it's not like just I'm going to eliminate corn altogether. You have to have organic meat if you're a meat eater, and then you have to also eliminate corn from your diet.
So once again, food alteration, agricultural modification has a negative impact for one important reason, that the chemicals that are being used to modify the DNA or the DNA strand of food groups has a ripple effect on our body, and it interacts negatively with our body, thus leading us, human beings, to develop cancer, obesity, you name it, various kinds of diseases. We're now becoming susceptible to it. So, genetically modified foods we now know are not good for our health. But the real question that I want to end this webisode with is, do we know how to detect them? In our webisode series on nutrition on The Good Doctor, we are going to go and search the stores for non-genetically modified foods and how to make the distinction between them. Thanks for watching The Good Doctor on eZeLiving.com, where you can find anything and everything a lifestyle.